Hello my lovelies and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name is Summer and we are back with another episode of Glam, Guilt and Cold Cases, where I get glam and we dive into the most darkest, weirdest and dramatic stories of history. Today's case is straight out of a vintage novel. A quiet secretary, two fashionable roommates, a married man in the middle, and two bodies stuffed into travel suitcases and sent across state lines. This is the story of Winnie Ruth Judd, a woman the press called the Tiger Woman and the Trunk Murderess. But was she a cold-blooded killer or just a fool girl for something much darker? Let's get spooky. So Winnie Ruth Judd, or actually her full name, which was Winnie Ruth McNeil, was born in 1905, Darlington, Indiana. Her father was a Methodist minister and her mum was deeply religious too, so she was brought up in a very conservative home. Church on Sunday, rules, reputation and respectability. At just 19, she married a man 22 years older than her, and that man would be Dr. William C. Judd, who was actually a World War veteran and a doctor. So their marriage wasn't great, it was actually quite rocky. William was addicted to morphine and they moved quite regularly. So they moved across the US and to Mexico for William's work until they eventually settled in Los Angeles. In 1930, Winnie was actually diagnosed with tuberculosis, which back then was a death sentence. So she moved on her own up to Phoenix, Arizona for cleaner air, is what she said. And this is where the story begins. Winnie found work as a secretary at Gun Row Medical Clinic, and this is where she met two women who would change her life forever. Angus Ann Leroy and Hedvig Sammy Samuelson. Anne was sharp, stylish and a little bit of a queen bee, and she worked as an x-ray technician. Hedvig, or Sammy, was quieter and more serious, and she also worked in the medical field, and the three of them became close friends. They were glamorous young women making their way through a man's world. They all lived in a flat together where they would host card games, drink most nights, invite the local businessmen over, and they would just live in their best lives in the 1930s. But of course, there was a man. Enter Jack Halloran, also known to people as Happy. Jack was a wealthy Phoenix businessman. He owned a lumber company and he was married with kids, and everyone in town knew his name. He was charming, powerful, well-connected and allegedly having affairs with all three women. Was he now? Winnie definitely fell for him, and she later said that they were in love, but it was allegedly said that he was actually having a long-standing affair with Anne. So complicated doesn't even cover it. At some point, Winnie did move out of the flat that she shared with Anne and Hedvig, but it said that the parties and the late nights didn't stop. Until one night, everything changed. It was a Friday, the 16th of October. Some sources say that Winnie went over to the girls' flat just to pick up some of her things, and others say it was just dinner and drinks, so not really too sure. But either way, she went over to the girls' flat that night, and an argument broke out. To this day, no one really knows what the argument was about. Some say it was about Jack, evidently. Others say it was jealousy about money or just other secrets that the girls had. So Winnie later says that one of the girls pulled out a gun and that she acted in self-defense. So by the time this whole thing was actually over, Winnie was only shot in the left hand, whereas Anne was dead and Hedvig was also dead but had been dismembered. Winnie was left with two bodies, one gunshot wound and a massive decision to make. So Winnie panicked. All planned, but either way, she wrapped Anne's body in sheets and then stuffed her into a steamer trunk. But Hedvig's body was too heavy to move in one piece. So what did Winnie do? Winnie cut the body into little pieces. She then packed it into a second trunk, a suitcase and a hat box. And then she thought, What about the smell? I know, I'll cover the bodies in clothes to mask the smell. I don't think that's gonna work, but that's just my opinion. The next day, Winnie boarded a train to Los Angeles, alone, but with all the luggage. She left behind a bloody crime scene, but carried everything with her across state lines. At Union Station in LA, the baggage handler noticed that the trunks were leaking and smelt of decomposition. Now, I did try and say, I don't think that the clothes are going to mask up the smell, which inevitably they did not. When they asked Winnie to open the trunks, she said that she didn't have the key to the trunks, that her husband did, and then she done a runner. Because obviously she wasn't going to just go, here we go, have a look, these are my two friends in here. No, that was not the case. It says that she never returned, but I think you got that from what I was saying. The police forced the trunks open and found both women's bodies inside. And obviously, the media exploded. Winnie was instantly branded the Trunk Murderess and also the Tiger Woman, a nickname that was meant to portray her as a wild, seductive and dangerous. And let's be honest, the press loved a woman fatale in the 1930s. Winnie was officially a fugitive. She stayed hidden in LA for 6 days. It said that friends helped her stay hidden, and one of those friends could possibly have been Jack. Am I shocked? No. When police finally arrested her, she was polite, composed, and dressed to the nines. The press couldn't get enough of her. Soft-spoken, wounded hand, fur coat, murder suspect. It was the perfect tabloid storm. Winnie was only charged for Anne Leroy's murder, not Hedvig's, because the dismemberment made it harder to prosecute and the state wanted to focus on the case. The trial began on January 19th, 1932. She pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming it was self-defence and that Jack was involved. But the jury found her guilty and she was sentenced to death by hanging. But just days before her execution, the court ordered a sanity hearing. In 1933, she was officially declared insane and sent to Arizona State Hospital for the insane instead of death row. Now this is where it gets wild. Winnie escaped the hospital 7 times. Once by tying bedsheets together and then climbing out the window, and another time she just walked out during a staff picnic. But the most famous, she escaped in 1940 and stayed missing for 6 years. 6 years she was missing for. She was living in North Carolina under the name Marion Lane. She was actually working as a nanny for a wealthy family and nobody knew who she was. But the police did eventually track her down and they sent her back to Phoenix. By the late 1960s, there was a growing movement to reconsider her case, and it wasn't just public opinion. Winnie herself petitioned to the state for a new sanity hearing. Her first request in 1996 was denied, but she didn't give up. In 1971, her second appeal was finally accepted, and shortly after, Governor Jack Williams signed over her pardon. She was then released from the Arizona State Hospital after 38 years. That's a bloody long time. And then she went back to California, still using the name Marion Lane. Now here is something strange. She was instructed to never talk about the case again. I'm talking no books, no interviews, no nothing. No one knows exactly why, but they believe it could be because of her release terms, or there are still people out there that want the case to stay buried. Winnie Ruth Judd, the Trunk Murderess, died in her sleep on October 23rd, 1998, at the age of 93. She had lived a quiet life, gardening, going to church, and obviously never speaking of the case again. To this day, people still debate on what really happened. Did she kill Anne and Hedwig out of jealousy? Was it self-defence? Or was she manipulated by Jack and took the fall? So a lot of people actually believe that Winnie didn't act alone, that the dismemberment was too clean for someone to just do by themselves. A lot of people think that Jack actually helped her, and that Winnie just protected him out of fear and loyalty. But officially, she was the only one to ever suffer the consequences. This case has inspired books, plays, and there was even a reference in the American Horror Story series Hotel, The Devil's Night episode. The serial killer ghosts meet for dinner at the Hotel Cortez, and there is a nod to Winnie the Drunk Murderess. Also, just a side note, I absolutely love American Horror Story, so finding that out, I was like, yes, it's a very good series if you haven't watched. The actual murder trunks are still on display at Police Phoenix Museum, if you're ever feeling a little bit morbid. So, what do you think? Was Winnie Ruth James a calculating killer, or was she just dragged into a situation she couldn't escape? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts, and if there is any cold cases or historical crimes you would like me to cover, also let me know. Until next time, stay spooky, stay stunning. Bye.